He was the quiet force behind some of the most powerful moments ever captured on film. And in his final days, far from the red carpets and award shows, Gene Hackman's life became exactly what he had earned: peaceful, private, and surrounded by the people who loved him. Gene Hackman, the two-time Academy Award-winning actor whose career defined an entire era of American cinema, has died at the age of 96. He passed away at his home in New Mexico after a period of declining health that he and his family chose to face quietly. In the end, there were no dramatic headlines, no cameras on the driveway, no staged farewell. Just a man who had given everything to his work, spending his last days in the calm he always preferred. Hackman's journey to that quiet ending was anything but simple. Born on January 30, 1930 in San Bernardino, California, he grew up in a world where the idea of movie star was distant and impossible. As a young man, he joined the Marine Corps, serving several years and learning the discipline that would later shape his approach to acting. When he finally turned toward performance, it was not through instant success. He worked odd jobs, lived in small apartments, took classes, and endured the long, humbling process of becoming an actor in a business that told him more than once that he did not fit the usual mold. What he had, though, was something the industry quickly learned to recognize: presence. When Gene Hackman walked onto a screen, the audience believed him. Whether he was playing a cop, a coach, a villain, a father, or a flawed hero, there was no sense of performance layered on top. He seemed to simply exist inside the moment, making every gesture and every line feel like something that could actually happen. That honesty became the foundation of a career that would stretch from the 1960s into the early 2000s. His breakthrough came with Bonnie and Clyde, where his supporting role announced him as someone impossible to ignore. From there, the list of films became a kind of unofficial history of modern cinema. The French Connection, The Conversation, Superman, Mississippi Burning, Hoosiers, Unforgiven, Crimson Tide, The Royal Tenenbaums, and dozens more. 2 Oscars, one for The French Connection, one for Unforgiven, were only the most visible recognition of what he was doing. Behind the statues were countless performances that shaped how audiences understood what a character actor and a leading man could be. But the man behind all of those roles was not someone who sought the spotlight once the cameras turned off. Gene Hackman was known, even during his most successful years, as a person who valued privacy. He was never a constant presence on talk shows, never built a life around being seen at every premiere, never seemed interested in turning his name into a brand. He worked hard, delivered the performance, accepted the occasional award when the industry insisted on giving it to him, and then went home. That instinct for privacy grew stronger as he aged. In the early 2000s, after a final run of films, he stepped away from acting completely. There was no grand farewell tour, no final movie designed as a curtain call. He simply stopped taking roles. When asked, he said that the work had been fulfilling, but that it was time. He moved to New Mexico, began a new chapter that included writing novels, spending time with his family, and living at a pace very different from the one that had defined his prime years in Hollywood. Those who saw him in his later years often commented on how content he seemed. He aged the way you hope someone with a long, demanding career will age, quietly, with the freedom to decide how each day would unfold. There were health challenges, as there are for most people in their 80s and 90s, heart concerns, reduced mobility, the gradual narrowing of the world that comes with age. But even as his physical strength declined, the core of who he was remained: sharp, observant, and uninterested in drawing unnecessary attention. In his final days, that privacy became even more important. As his health weakened, the circle around him tightened. Family members and close friends were the ones who knew the details: the doctor visits, the small improvements, the setbacks, the moments of clarity, the afternoons spent simply sitting by a window or in a quiet yard. For the rest of the world, Gene Hackman had already become a kind of gentle ghost, a name on the spine of DVDs and streaming menus, a face in classic film retrospectives, a presence in memory more than in news stories. Inside that private world, the last chapter of his life was written in the language of everyday care. There were conversations at the bedside, memories shared of films and of days nobody else knew about, moments when he smiled at an old story or at the simple fact of still being here. As the end drew nearer, those close to him describe a sense of acceptance. He had lived nearly a century. He had worked at the highest level of his craft. He had loved and been loved. The idea of leaving did not feel like an interruption so much as the natural closing of a long, complex book. When the final day came, it was, by all accounts, quiet. At home, in New Mexico, without flashing lights outside or a crowd of reporters at the gate, his family was present. The medical team who had been monitoring his condition understood that the goal was comfort, not intervention at any cost. There were no dramatic scenes, no last-minute heroics, just a peaceful transition from life into memory in a house far from the sound stages where he had once spent so many hours. The news of his passing spread quickly once it was confirmed, and the reaction from the film community was immediate. Directors spoke about how reliable he had been, how he brought a level of truth to every scene that made their work easier. Fellow actors remembered the intensity of working with him, the way he listened, the way he reacted, the way he pushed them to meet him at the level he naturally inhabited. Critics revisited old reviews and realized, again, just how many times Gene Hackman had been at the center of a film that mattered. For audiences, the loss feels both distant and personal. Distant because for many younger viewers, he had not appeared in anything new in years. Personal because his performances are woven into the fabric of stories that people return to again and again. The coach in Hoosiers, the conflicted lawman in the French Connection, the aging gunslinger in Unforgiven, the strict yet oddly vulnerable father in the Royal Tenenbaums. These characters are part of the emotional landscape of countless lives. The obituary for Gene Hackman will list the basics. Born January 30, 1930, died in his mid-90s at home in New Mexico, 2 Academy Awards, a career spanning more than 4 decades. But those lines cannot fully capture what his work meant. He was, in many ways, the definition of the working actor, someone who treated each role as a job to be done well, not as a vehicle for personal glory. And in doing so, he became one of the most quietly influential figures in modern film. In his final days, the Hollywood legend did not try to rewrite his story. He simply lived out the last pages with the same understated dignity that had guided him all along. No spectacle, no grand exit, just a man in a house he chose, surrounded by the people he trusted, letting go when it was time. Gene Hackman, born January 30, 1930, died in his 90s after a long, extraordinary life. A performer whose honesty on screen defined generations of cinema, and whose final days were spent in the peace he had more than earned. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. Thank you for watching.